everyone, and welcome to the second round of the oNiD Simhound British oNiD4 series. We are here at a very popular British circuit, one well known. It is Brands Hatch, not just the normal Brands Hatch layout. This is the Short Indy circuit. We have a field of 27 cars to fit round here, only a 43 seconds lap time. It is going to be very tight, very action packed. Maybe quite a bit of chaos tonight, and joining us for the chaos, much like the chaos we had on Tuesday, is Mr. Aidan Hard. How you doing?
I don't know where to look. 27 cars we have in the lobby tonight for iRacing here at Hatch Indy circuit. I don't know how we're going to keep track of all the action. It's going to be an interesting evening as we shortly proceed to a qualifying briefing just finished for the drivers in our own Discord, and shortly they will be allowed to go to qualifying. It's not lone qualifying. They will be live on the circuit, sharing the circuit with one another, trying to set the fastest lap. Lap times are going to come thick and fast for this quarter of an hour qualifying session. We'll see if we can keep track. It'll be mental. Good evening, by the way, Scotty. Thank you for joining us again once more for iRacing. As qualifying, as you can now see cars heading out onto the circuit.
Yeah, Alchemistic Witch saying that they're scared in chat. I do not blame you. And Charlie Morgan saying, Aidan, have you got your orange overalls ready, just in case?
How did you know? No, I don't always wear them. Most of the time, anyway. Green flag is being waved, and those people dressed in orange, I'm sure, would have had a hectic time managing all this. As we now go on to the qualifying stage. First flying laps will come onto the board shortly, but for now, we just sit back and relax as the drivers go into their out laps, and now are going to start setting some qualifying times. First driver on a lap, I do believe, if I'm looking at my data right, will be this driver here, Mr. Oliver Stone. We'll see what he can do as he goes down through turn 3. You can use a lot of that runoff there. You can get away with it and not getting off track by going onto the grass through that exit of turn 3, I do believe. 4 and 5 quickly follow, however, and that's it. That's the lap.
Very short lap indeed. So curving up to the line down the Brabham straight, or not so straight, and our first lap time 44.023, not far from breaking sub 44 already from our Pro Championship leader, having won the second race last week. As we see for Toy coming out of that final corner 3 Clark curve, rear end stepping out. We've seen a lot of that last week at Donington. Of course, as a reminder, we're running fixed setup, so drivers not able to change the setup to suit their liking, to dial the balance in. Ooh. And for Toy showing that off as they go off bouncing into the gravel. There'll be a trip back to pit lane. Luckily though, short lap, but still 50-minute qualifying session, plenty of time to get plenty of laps. You can maybe get about 20 laps in if you really wanted to this session, so plenty of time to perfect those lap times and really push the limits.
Yep, absolutely. Just to see some of these guys finish off their laps, and we'll see Mac Barnes come to the line. He jumps up to 8th position with still about half the field yet to set a lap time. We've still got another 27 cars total, so 13 cars yet to set a lap. I'm just having a look down my timing screen to see who's doing what. Jarrett Page has done a flying lap, but is yet to set a valid time. If he's gone back to the pits, he's going to rejoin. Jack Dan, our previous race winner, let's not forget, from race 1 at Donington. Last time out, have a race winner racing again tonight and seeing what he can do. Let's jump on board with him as he does continue his lap, as goes down through turn 2. Now it'll be turn 3 to follow. Goes a little bit wide, and is that a little bit too wide for iRacing's liking? We'll find out in a few moments time. So he goes through turn 4 up into turn 5, the final turn of this Indy variant of the circuit, before they decided to elongate it into the forest. Comes to the line. What's it going to be? Race winner last time out. It's going to be Not a valid time. Has to go again.
Yeah, there's that sort of mesh on the outside of Graham Hill Bend, but Dan used all that mesh and a little bit more, actually dipping a wheel into the unmeshed grass. That does seem to
Yeah.
have invalidated their lap time for our also pole sitter from last week. Coming up on a bit of traffic now, might have to back
Yeah.
out of this lap, and this is going to be a frustration, especially for the quicker drivers. Of course, the quicker you lap, well, a bit of a mind punch, you could say there. I think that might have been Matt Cleaver off into the barrier.
Oh
No,
no.
Matt Cleaver's ran very wide. That is definitely too wide outside of track limits to Graham Hill Bend, and invalidated that lap for them. But yes, as we were saying, Jack Dan getting a valid lapping sub 44. Mahai just missing out on that by 1/100th of a second. But yeah, going to be difficult not to find traffic with 27 drivers also vying for space on the track. Some of different pace to others, let's just say, that can make it difficult to find gaps. Ash Hill coming up to the line now is in P11, improves to P10 with the 44.410. Currently still top of the time is Oliver Stone with 43.8. Ben Brown coming across the line is sitting P4, but invalidated that previous lap. Jack Dan improving, but not enough to take Oliver Stone's provisional pole at the moment. Matt High finding a bit of traffic, not improving that lap, and another bit of a mind punt this time. That might have been Jared Page, judging by them returning to pits there. But yeah, very, very action-packed laps. They just keep coming in time after time now. Little rest between them again. Ash Hill already back to the start finish line, not improving this time. Has already dropped out of the top 10 after getting themselves to 10th previous time. Alex Turner there, Aiden Carter saying their first valid lap of session, believe, straight into 43.982 to take the final top 3 position. Adrian Rich still yet to have valid lap time to come across the line. Is that going to put them on the board? Waiting. No, doesn't seem like it. Run wide into gravel, car spinning. That's Sean McGardle losing the rear end through turn 1. Common thing we saw last week at Donington, drivers losing rear end. Let's just get replay. See it stepping out as Sean is aiming for the apex. Luckily not collected by the Adrian.
Thankfully, as we said, fixed setups for these guys, so they're having to learn how to drive the car instead of getting to get the car how to drive how they want it to feel, let's say. So a bit more of a challenge there, potentially forcing these guys to maybe compromise on how they drive or have some issues. However, saying he's not compromising, as the car spinning ahead of him in turn 1. Jack Dan, pole position, 43.829, 8 thousandths quicker than Oliver Stone in second as it stands. Aiden Carter not too far behind, about to finish a lap as well, going through turn 5, up through the uphill entry. It goes very quickly back downhill again, going very wide, 2 wheels on the grass.
Pushing to the absolute limit, might get a distant toe here up to the line. Crosses the line here, is it an improvement? No, they lost too much time there at the end, but still sitting in P3. Plenty more drivers seemingly struggling to improve, struggling to find that last bit of time. As we've seen, when you push this car to its absolute limit, it tends to sort of step away from you, step out the rear end especially, which can be quite difficult. Philip Staples just sitting outside of the top 10, now dropped down to P12 with Grant Lloyd getting themselves into that top 10 position. Can Staples push them out? Run up to the line again, maybe a slight distant toe here, crossing the beam. Wait for the lap time come in, and it's not valid, so have to go on for another lap. Sophie there improving. Charlie Morgan now up to 13th place for our current AM championship leader. 2 second places last week at Donington. That consistency bringing them to the top of that championship point standings. But I believe they'll want a little bit more than 13th.
That's not how you do it.
Philip Staples again showing how loose the rear end can be on these oNiD4 cars.
Yep, absolutely. Unfortunately, there's another oNiD car going into the final turn as well, facing the wrong way, and I think that's just going to be a safe redrive for Philip Staples, but they get going once more and they'll continue. We've got about another 6 minutes left of qualifying. Plenty of time to get a few more laps in. Ben Brown comes to the line, remains in 6th position, but Sean McArdle, not too far ahead of him, goes up to 5th, pips him for the 5th position. As it stands, no one really finding any more time. Jack is out on track again. Jack down in pole position on an outlap. There's a car getting out of the way there. That is a very slow car. I couldn't quite work out who that was. But with just under 5 minutes left, it looks relatively settled, just waiting for potentially someone to do a bit of a miracle lap here and see if they can do anything to improve their times. I can't see it happening as of yet, and the sectors aren't really lighting up for me. However, oh, look at that!
Oh! Joint fastest lap time, 43.829. Jack Dan will continue to hold provisional pole. It doesn't matter. Jack Dan improves immediately, a 10th quicker, having had for all of about 10 seconds 2 drivers tied for pole position to the 1,000th of a second. But Jack Dan ultimately pushing themselves a little further in front still. 4.5 minutes of this qualifying session to go, which again, for how short the lap time here is an absolute age. Aiden Carter improving, not good enough though to get themselves further up than P3. Also worth mentioning, Sean McArdle's time that's put them into P5 also is the highest positioned AM driver after 2 P4 finishes last week, is funny enough, P4 within the AM Championship. So this could be a good round for them if they can keep the pace up in the races to come. As usual, as like last week, 2 races coming up, 35-minute feature race followed by a 25-minute sprint race with the top 15 reversed from the race 1 results. As Sean McGarl again very slidey through the final couple of corners, seeing some more improvements up and down the field. Matt High and Ash Hill both improving, not gaining position. Someone gaining position so is Ben Brown, just missing out on P4 from Matt High by 0.02 of a second. But I'm sure Ben Brown will be happy enough with P5 if he can stay there, of course. That is another matter to consider.
Now, track is getting a little bit quiet now. Got loads of cars going into the pits. I think they'll have time to get back out again if they're quick. They've got about another 4 minutes of qualifying. That's a good odd few laps. They leave the pits now. Jack Dan's still out. Stone Carter, High and Brown, however, remain in the pit lane. They're not limited to laps. They can do as many as they can within the quarter of an hour, unlike the zone qualifying we did have for the previous iRacing season here on oNiD, where we were racing all the GT4s around the tracks with private qualifying. They are able just to go out and set laps, but they're sharing it with everyone. And I think Jack Dan especially taking the opportunity here, along with Ricardo, Monroe, Holmes, Arrowan, Ashford, Richford, Terry and Page, taking the opportunity for a very quiet circuit.
Oh, Ben Brown correcting us in chat. There is a 15-lap maximum you're allowed to complete this qualifying session with such a short lap time. Yeah, quite a few drivers meeting that limit. So maybe that's why I've seen some drivers just waiting a little bit longer at the start of the session. Seems to have been a good idea. It's working for Luca Munro, who puts themselves up to P7 in the standings.
Gotcha.
So yeah, track getting much quieter, which is certainly going to be helping these drivers have waited a little bit longer. As long as they can keep the car not just on the road, but pointing in the right direction, which, as we've seen so far this session and from last week, is a little bit of a struggle when you're pushing for the best lap time possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So all the cars that are in the pits at the minute have done all their 15-lap allocation then. Monroe's got another lap to do. So it's Ben Holmes who's just finishing at his last flying lap. Will he pull it into the pits, or is he going to go for it? No, he's going to go for it. He's going to try and set a new lap time. Goes through the final turn, put to the floor. This will be his final lap. And comes to the line. Is it going to be an improvement up the order? Nope, he stays put in 13th. However, Rich, oh, that's not how you start your final flying lap. Does find a position up into 21st, beats Richard Ashford down to 22nd, but that is going to be, actually he has got enough time, oh no, don't have enough time to start a lap and finish one, so that will be qualifying absolutely done and dusted. Arrow will just about see the checkers flag if they were turning their open wheel car into a bit of a Gymkhana style drift there going through the final turn. Controls it, comes to the line. Is it going to be an improvement from 20th? No, sorry, it's not. I say 19th, should I say? It's not an improvement. Stays put and won't have time to set another lap. That's qualifying over. I think also for Rich, he may just see the checker flag in the next few seconds. He will indeed. But the 15-minute timer will end quite abruptly. It will force everyone to stop what they're doing on circuit and will end the qualifying session. And that is qualifying done and dusted.
That final corner drift from Sophie really got me thinking of the phrase turn left to go right, because that is certainly what they were doing on their final qualifying lap. But yeah, intense session, and at the end of it, Jack Dan makes it 2 for 2 pole positions for our oNiD4 series. Oliver Stone, another second place. Aidan Carter, P3. That is the same top 3 as we had last week. Will they finish in the same order in the first race? Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Matt High will take P4 ahead of a good result for Ben Brown, up in P5, having got a podium in Monday's series this week. He might be looking to try and repeat that. We'd be impressed if he can. Sean McGardle, our highest AM driver, in P6, have Luca Munro. Nigel Stock will roll off from P8 ahead of Tempera, and Matt Cleaver rounds out the top 10. 11th is Grant Lloyd ahead of Betolfson in P12. Looking further down then, we have Ben Holmes 13th, Philip Staples in 14th, Charlie Morgan 15th, Ash Hill 16th, Mike Reiner 17th, Dan Tomlinson down in 18th, Sophie Arrowin in 19th ahead of Mac Barney's rounding out top 20. Adrian Rich in 21st ahead of Ashford 22nd. For Toy 23rd, Jarrett Page in 24th. And on our last row of the grid, we have Jessica Perry in 25th, Alex Turner 26th, and not setting a lap time in that quality session is Krozek, which I've probably butchered, apologies, but they will be starting from the back on the 27th grid spot. Standing start about to come ahead of 35 minutes of racing. Lapped traffic will surely be a feature in this race, but the lights are coming on now. Drivers will rev their engines, and we're away here for the first race of round 2. It's a clean getaway from everyone. Can they all survive turn 1? Paddock Hill looks clean from the front row. Ben Brown already up to P4, following fellow oNiD driver Aidan Carter, as there's a bit of shuffling in the background. Dan Tomlinson making up a place early on as well. Looks like everyone is cleanly through, which is great to see compared to last week. And it's now up to everyone to get going. Grant Lloyd losing a few positions now, but everyone's still pointing the right way, still on track, which is great to see.
I'm dead impressed with these guys. That's brilliant. We have got Morgan, however, going to the pit lane, and that is a very unplanned stop along with Jarrett Page. The potentially damage there for those two drivers, and I can't see anything pinging up on my screen. Maybe just wheel-to-wheel contact. That's seen damage.
Charlie Morgan's just driven through. I wonder if it's just drive-through penalty for Morgan for a jump start. That's my best guess.
I tell you what, the leaders already come up to turn 5. Such is the short nature of this circuit. They're going to have traffic pretty immediately as they go through the final turn in the midfield. There's fighting. There's cars around. It's Spottlesford.
I want to say they come together with Philip Staples, who's also dropped a few positions. But yeah, pretty much back for the field for Betolfson. I'll have a look here. Philip Staples behind Betolfson. driver in front, coming into Clark Carvin, but Thompson just loses rear end as we seen last week and in qualifying. Phillips Stables, fortunately, wrong place, wrong time, did very well to avoid any contact and thus any damage, but did drop a few positions, unfortunately, for them. Fight here for P6. Luca Munro trying to hold off Tempera for P6. Luca trying on the inside, Munro trying to hide, or sorry, Munro on the inside. Luca, Tempera, sorry, trying to hold it round the outside, will be the outside for Paddock Hill. We go on board, a little bit of a swap, and that's Ben Brown into the wall on the exit of Paddock Hill. So unfortunate to see, but there's still plenty of fighting into Druids as Ben Brown recovers, missing a rear wing. That is a very sorry sight for the oNiD4 car. And it's going to be crawling right to pit lane, and with how short this lap is for sure going to be a lap down, and again just loses rear end. As we've commonly seen, very slow driver behind. I think that is Matt High, yeah, Matt High that was behind. Also nearly doing the same thing, but just managed to avoid that. Staples, and now spun off, going through 30s.
Just fighting in that battle you're watching, and he's, I think, potentially, looking at my timing screen, done that all by himself, and he's joined him as he's rejoining. Let's go and see what happened as he went off circuit. Yeah, Swapper, look at that!
It bounced off the curb, unsettling the car and finding the grass. Luckily, no wall, no damage, but yeah, losing a lot of time, a lot of positions. Even Ben Brown without their rear wing getting past. Fight here for 21st. Staples trying to get past Alex Turner, looking to the outside of Graham Hill Bend. Will sweep round and pick up 21st again, and will now be going chasing after Butofson as Charlie Morgan now after a bit of a dropping down the order, also getting past Alex Turner for 22nd.
Indeed he is. It's a battle, however, McCleaver and McCardle going at it through turn 2 for 8th and 9th. Up ahead of them, Nigel Stock, Tempera and Monroe also again fighting away for the positions in this little kind of lower top 10 fight. It's an interesting battle between them all, and I'm sure they're going to get very close to each other, and that's a car spinning. That is McCardle.
Yeah, I also want to point out Ash Hill coming out of Graham Hill Bend was a little bit wide, got big twitch off of the grass, managed to hold on to it, but Sean McGardle unfortunately, and that's another car off into the wall in the background. So we'll see here, Sean McGardle at the back of this 4-car train, just look to the inside. There wasn't really a move on there, and trying to get the car slowed down, losing the rear end, and then driving into the gravel, trying to get the car turned around, nearly meeting a wall. Tell you who did meet a wall, just out of camera shot, but I see there, missing their front left wheel as well. Big damage, that's probably going to be them out of the race, as we see Jack Page having a trip through the gravel at Paddock Hill. Oh, and rejoining into the side of, is that Ben Holmes?
It was. That's not how you do a rejoin. He's going to be stuck there for a little while trying to rejoin. He does eventually do so. I'm just going to try and find who that crash was in the final turn. Jessica Perry.
Yeah, driver into pits, just running wide and then straight into the wall this time, with sort of got off the racing line on the entry to the corner as they tried to turn in. Didn't have the grip, the car just went straight on and met the wall. As we see Jack Dan defending for the lead, Oliver Stone looking to the outside into Paddock Hill Bend, maybe try and get a bit of a cutback, get to the inside for Jards, but Jack Dan gonna shut that door. Very common move there, so round the outside, maybe bit too long for the way to go for Oliver Stone. This is bringing Aidan Carter closer once again. Drivers using a bit of the grass going into Graham Hill Bend. Bit of grass too on the exit for Oliver Stone. Car twitching and sliding from it, but they're able to keep it going in the right direction.
Again, this top 3 again. Oh, that's a moment. That's going to be a move up the inside, done and dusted. And that's a change for the lead.
Was just a little too wide for Jack Dan, unsettled the car. You can see with the drivers have been off there at Clark Curve have brought gravel back onto the track, so if you are that little bit wide, you're going to lose a lot of grip, and it has got Jack Danites costing them the lead at this point of the race. Though, do not fret for them, as they did lose the lead in the first race last week. They were able to regain it. They'll have to do the same this time if they want to pick up their second win. Oliver Stone now with the clear air. Can they start to break away, start to build a bit of a gap, or is Jack Dan going to be able to carry the pressure on, put it on, and try and force Oliver Stone into some sort of mistake to retake the lead?
Let's have a look. I think it's about going up the inside. Feels Oliver Stone's ring mirrors with that blue and white car. But I may have a look up into turn 2. There's a open wheel size gap. There's contact with the leaders.
Climbing over their front wheel, Jack Dan, and that is Oliver Stone being spun in the background. Just have to wait for a gap to rejoin. Nearly find one. Unfortunately, Ash Hill just coming round at the sort of wrong timing. They'll eventually get the car turned on the grass and slowly rejoin, but will have picked up quite a bit of damage, as you can see, instantly spinning as they try and get going again, which you'd imagine with the sort of how Jack Dan jumped over their front wheel. This is how it happened. A look to the inside, not really quite far enough alongside, and just clipping the rear corner and finding the front wheel to climb over. So Oliver Stone, I believe, towed to the pits. That's essentially going to be race over for our championship leader coming into this round.
Well, that's going to go down well in the Twitch chat. I mean, the Discord chat, should I say? Twitch chat, maybe another thing. We can see if see if you guys what your thoughts on that is. But yeah, that is going to be very much race over for him, and it's going to be it's going to be a back in the grid start for race 2.
Yeah, that's probably the bit that hurts most. But 25 minutes to try and make positions up should hopefully be a fun race for them. But speaking of reverse grid, for Toy fighting to decide who will start on which side of the front row currently between them and Sean McArdle, trying to come back after that earlier mistake spinning off. One of the few drivers that done so, and we've got a replay here for Toy coming through Graham Hill Bend.
That's how the move was done. There was a bit of a fight back going through these last couple of corners. That absolutely done. Oh, that was actually a couple of moves. Oh, that was a lap before. Ignore me. I was hoping to catch the move done for that 50th position, but I think my timing's just been a little bit off. How interesting. 50th position, reverse grid, pole position as it stands for now. Another quarter of an hour to go.
Issue for Tempera. They're starting to drop down the order. I think they've had contact with Monroe. This at Paddock Hill. Like the gravel being pulled onto the track. Look at the gravel there on the exit, and that is quite a bit of damage. The car wanting to spin similar manner to Oliver Stone, and they see just loses the rear end, and straight into the back was Monroe, as Tempera was trying to catch the car. Heavy damage for Tempera as they got front wing jammed into their rear suspension. It's going to do a lot of damage. This from Monroe's point of view. At that point the car starts going. There's not much you can do than just brake and hope that you're going to slow down in time, which evidently they did not. So Tempera, another driver, having to tow back to pit lane, and we'll be starting from towards the back for next race. Eden Carter, after all that drama, has taken the lead. You'd think, being one of the only of the top 3 going on without any damage, that it'd be an easy lead for them. Matt High not giving it to them. It's going to have a look to the inside of Paddock Hill. Contact, and Eden Carter into the gravel as Matt High takes the lead with a forceful move into turn 1. How will Carter respond? Will they catch back up? Will they put on a similarly aggressive move? Or is Matt High going to try and run away with this? This race certainly being interesting, and certainly providing some drama so far.
Just trying to figure out. The Jack Dan had that crash. He's dropped back quite a sizable amount to this lead battle. As oh, he's going to the pits. Aiden's going to the pits. That's
As a
got to be
reminder,
the damage.
the drivers all have a fast repair. So coming into the pits, okay, it's going to lose you like half a lap with just how short it is. But yeah, we should see in
that's a
Carter
quick
only stop
repair.
for a moment. Yep, already
Back out
moving.
again. Oh boy.
Yeah, only falling to P7, so it's not too bad. Still have over about 22.5 minutes of the race to go. Plenty of time for Carter to try and get themselves back up the order. And
So,
now, Matt High leading.
yeah, Matt High in the lead. Oh, Thomas has had an issue dropping down the yard. Oh, he's off. Thomas is off.
Into that gravel at Clark Curve, waiting for a gap to rejoin. And does find it. Let's see a replay. Rear end. Yep, swapped round once again. Luckily not meeting the wall, but of course, good chunk of time lost recovering the car from the gravel.
Yeah.
Luckily, no one getting beached in the gravel, which would it'd be quite a busy day for the marshals if they were having to recover all the cars that have found the gravel so far today.
The Orange Army here virtually, let's say, as we see Aiden Carter making a move, recovering from a contact moment with Matt High for the lead battle. These cars are prone to damage. Let's not forget the Model I racing here is very realistic. So a side-by-side nudge like he received down into turn 1 probably going to give him a wheel damage, and thus a mutable flag would have potentially been shown for him, forcing him to make the pit stop within 3 laps, regardless if the car was driving okay for him. Damage model forcing essentially for him to make the pit stop.
Yeah, one driver I also want to point out is Krozek up in P8. Remember, didn't set a lap time in qualifying, so started all the way down in 27th. Has made great progress so far this race, up 19 places. Also going well so far for Ash Hill, up
never mind.
12.
Oh, we spoke about him. Sorry to interrupt you. I saw him on off circuit. Oh no. Let's see what happened. Goes up through the final 10. Oh, curb. Got onto the curb, and that's it. It's just a passenger.
Just ran too wide through Saturday's gone to that curb. Onto the grass a little bit as well. Could get the car slowed down, and it will be back to the back of the field for them after a great race so far. As we see Mahai, big wobble into Paddock Hill. They gathered up, keeping the car out of the gravel, but showing that Mahai is pushing out there in the lead, is trying to keep the gap to Jack Dan, 3.5 seconds at the moment. But the last thing they'll want to do is make a mistake. Here's replay. Ben Holmes making a move on Butolfson into Paddock Hill Bend. And that, I believe, was for 13th, if I read the timing tower correctly. 17th, sorry. But yeah, 14.4 seconds to catch up to Ben Brown. Quite the gap. I mean, sort of quite a few drivers have had issues this race. You know, if you think Ben Brown, had his issues, he's in 16th. He's not too far from getting reverse grid pole.
Yeah, absolutely. Only about 4 seconds behind Ashford for that 50th position. And V8 Trucker 5 joined the community. Thank you very much for the follow. Did have another follow earlier on. Didn't quite catch who that was, but again, thank you for your support. Wonderful to have you. And yeah, welcome to the second round of this iRacing season here on oNiD Season 3.
It has been chaos, as we have expected. We're only just over 16 minutes into the race, still nearly 20 minutes to go. So plenty of time. Matt High asserting the fact they want to open that gap up for the lead, gaining half a second on Jack Dan with a new personal best. That gap now 4.3 seconds as Mac Barney's off into the gravel. On the exit of Clark Curve, another victim trying to build sandcastles is gonna drop down the order. Let's see a replay here. They'll bounce off the curb there, so seems to have it gathered up here. Turning in, seems fine, just trying to pick up the throttle. Spins up the rear tire, spins the car around, and luckily has a gap to throw themselves to the gravel to, I must say, very, very well done spinning the car to face the right direction to get going again. And they'll hold on to 13th replay here of Jessica Perry.
Bad to worse for Jessica. Goes up through the final turn again, and I think it's going to be almost a carbon copy of what put them into the wall in the first instance. I believe they had a meeting with that outside wall going into the final turn. Almost made the same mistake again, sadly, as they will, however, rejoin and keep on going. Props to them for doing so.
Yeah, that time it was over. That Staples off, tripped through the gravel, luckily avoided the wall, but they'll not be getting ahead of Mac Barnes for 13th. Actually, might lose 14th to Ashford, who just closes up here, but wasn't quite close enough to take the position. And look, Ben Brown's on the back of Ashford as well. This is about to become a three-way battle. Of course, all these cars having to contend with traffic, whether you're a car further up the grid, having to contend with lapped cars, or further down you have to contend with being lapped. Is not making the racing easy here, as Ben Brown has a car on their inside. That's why they're staying left here.
That's a lapped car unlapping themselves, so that's not for position. And just trying to figure out who that is. Obviously one of the potential faster cars that had a better race.
That's Jack Dan or Oliver Stowe. I can't remember which way round the liveries are between those two.
Oliver Stone. So he's trying to make his way back past P15, the car number 7. And indeed does so. He's put himself back in front of him, and Ashford is now really under threat from Ben after having that faster car unlap themselves. Into the final 10 they go, but they live to fight another day. Ben hanging on to the rear wing. It's got about 5.5 minutes, should I say, to take that P15, which will be the all-elusive reverse grid pole position. There's going to be a move up the inside, potentially to turn 2. It's a run through turn 1. Ben keeps it on the inside. On the brakes they go. Is that going to be move done? We go back to the trackside view, and that is move done. P15 for Ben Brown, pole position for race 2 as it stands.
I don't think Ben Brown is going to settle for that. I think they'd like to try and get a couple more positions if possible this race. Someone looking to regain positions is Aidan Carter, catching up to a battle between Monroe, Nigel Stock and Ash Hill here, and immediately past Stock for P5, immediately drawing their attention to Ash Hill for P4. Right under the rear crash structure for the classic Renault liveried machine, and has a little wide moment as they're trying to get to the inside of Clark Curve. It'll be the inside for Paddock Hill Ben, and looks like a relatively easy move as Aidan Carter up to P4 now. Next target is Matt Cleaver by 8.5 seconds. Up the road is car spun there on the exit. That's Alex Turner on the exit of T1.
Oh boy, let's go on board with them to see how it's done. He goes into turn 1, a little bit too much speed. Got a bit too keen on the right foot. It was kind of having a half spin. Goes on the brakes. Here comes the cars.
Very well avoided by them, and uses the gap to get the car off the circuit to turn it back around. But difficult race so far for Alex Turner. 4 laps down on Jessica Perry in 24th.
Oh no, that's not going to help his cause. He returns to the pits.
And that is going to be a few more laps on that counter. Ash Hill trying to go round the outside of Nigel Stock, not quite making the move work. Sorry, being passed on the inside by Nigel Stock at Druids, and Nigel Stock has got themselves up. Back up to P5, where they were before Aidan Carter came through the field, but it's not done yet. Ash Hill sending it up the inside at Clark Curve. That is a very committed move. holding the car on the limit and retakes P5, but Nigel Stock isn't done, slotting into slipstream. Is going to look to the inside of Paddock Hill. Hashell will have to leave the space and gets sent a little bit wide and finds the gravel, does Ashhill, and it's P5 again for Nigel Stock, getting their elbows out and giving us some good racing action. All seemed fair there as we go back to battle for P11, led by Fortoy. Charlie Morgan and Mac Barnes chasing them down or fighting amongst themselves. We'll have to see here as they come into Jerds. No move here as Batolfson spins just in front of them. That causes Fortoy to go onto the grass as Morgan, trying to look to the outside here of Graham Hill Bend, carries the momentum, and he'll be side by side into Surrey. Or is one of them go back out? They try and hold side by side. Morgan nearly on the grass, does have to back out there, and Fortoy just about holding on to what is now P11 as they after they had to take a little detour on the grass. Morgan trying to get to the inside, swaps to the outside though as the drivers go back to the racing line. That's Oliver Stone right behind the pair of these two, of not fighting for position but trying to unlap themselves, is the driver that started second on the grid and leads our championship, trying to recover anything they can, gain any last grid positions for our sprint race coming up, as we have just by 11.5 minutes of the race remaining. And it's a little bit wide as we have Krosek spinning onto the grass on the outside of Graham Hill as they were fighting Botolfson and Temperera.
Outside of turn 3. Oh, that's a clip. That's up onto 2 wheels. Temporarily turning that type of wheel car into a motorbike. And we'll rejoin again, but that's going to be damaged. I'm not sure if he's going to have to go back to the pits for that. It does rejoin in quite an erratic manner. But yeah, indeed, does go to the pits. It's going to be repairs.
Yeah, and if they've already used their fast repairs, we have Matt Cleaver fighting for Jack Dan. But if they've used their fast repair, it's not going to be a quick repair. It's going to be a slow repair that will put them laps down. Jack Dan, our pole sitter, under tremendous pressure, carrying damage from that incident with Oliver Stone earlier on in the race. Matt Cleaver trying to make it a match 1-2 in this race. But Jack Dan, despite the damage, is not going to give up easily, as Morgan again trying to fight for Toy for P11. And Ashhill trying to fight Nigel Stock, but down the inside for Matt Cleaver. Can they hold on to the position, or will Jack Dan swing to the inside for Cleaver to defend the inside for Jerds? Dan tries to come back around the outside, but as we've seen before, just too long of a way round, and they will have to settle for P3. Now, Aidan Carter, 7 seconds back. Can they close the gap down in the remaining 10 seconds as Mac Barnes is trying to get past Charlie Morgan, who hasn't been able to complete the move on for Toy? And he's coming under pressure, but is held on for now. And this is about to become a 5-way battle. Philip Staples and Ben Brown have both caught up. A car kicking up a lot of gravel, trying to pick out who that is.
Back marker.
Is that Stone? I think that is Oliver Stone. Pushing a little too hard, making a mistake in T1 and putting themselves right in this 5-car train that is all fighting for position. That's not a nice place to be. It's going to be very awkward for all involved. He is splitting currently, Charlie Morgan and Mac Barnes, as Morgan piling the pressure on. I'm looking to the inside here of Fortoy is Morgan. They've got alongside as wheel-to-wheel contact coming into T1 as Staples down the inside of Mac Barnes as well will get the move done cleanly there. So will Morgan, and Ben Brown following Staples through, dives to the inside of Staples, who luckily sees the move coming at the last minute, opens the door, and Ben Brown 2 positions into corners, maybe getting about quite lucky there with Philip Staples being very aware of Ben Brown coming there. And here is for Toy now with Oliver Stone all over their rear end, trying to unlap themselves. Of course, drivers are allowed to unlap themselves if they're quicker, but they must make the move safely And for Toy, won't really want to give this up. They want to try and catch down Charlie Morgan, get themselves back up to P11.
Yep, absolutely. As you said, if you can make the move safely, by all means go and unlap yourself if you've got the pace. But Ben Brown fighting away. It's three wide. There is a lapped car. Or is that the lapping car? Is that the race leader, Matt High, trying to get past this battle? It is.
It is. Car kicking up a bit of dirt there from in front as Matt High tries to get through this 3-car train that Ben Brown has fallen to the back of once again. So we'll have to try and get those moves. Rear end sliding as it go. Hold on to. Very well held there from Mac Barney's, but it really has not helped our current leader, Matt High, as they try and make their way through. They're looking to the outside of T1, and Barney's is going to let them through, but it's going to put them under pressure from Philip Stables, looking to the inside. It's going to send up the inside of Druids. We'll get the move done nice and cleanly. Barney's not fighting it too hard, and Ben Brown is also going to find their way through up to 14th, and will chase down Philip Stables, try and get that move done once again.
Indeed he will. Jack Dan was relatively close there to Matt Cleaver P2 ever so briefly. If my HUD is correct, he's currently fired on 20 instant points. Oh, it's off track, so it may just be not instant points per se, but off tracks they've had. We can't actually see what instant points they're racking up, but they do need to be a little bit more careful if they're going to continue to go off track. Those instant points will be racking up, and points mean prizes, not in the better way, but prizes in the form of drive-throughs. So they do need to be careful with about 6 minutes to go. Don't want to be losing positions.
And it's not just the positions, it's also sort of track positioning. The cars that you've either lapped or are lapping you, well, especially that you've lapped, that you're then going to have to re-lap, that is just going to cost you extra time. Matt Cleaver, though, made a mistake, was wide out of Graham Hill Bend, has allowed Jack Dan to close up with the slipstream, and it's lost of the rear end for Matt Cleaver. They managed to save the car, but not without losing PT.
Oh. You lucky boy.
It really looked like they were going to hold on to that. Then it looked like it was gone completely. Then somehow, when we cut to their onboard, they managed to save it. Can see there, it looks like it's gone. But Cleaver just stamping on the brakes, locking the tyres up to prevent the rotation in the car. And it certainly worked for them. With flat spotted, the tyres damaged them a little bit, which won't be ideal for the rest of this race. As Aidan Carter is going to try and chase them down and take the final podium position back after they had to pit for damage.
Fastest lap as well from Aidan. He's pushing 43.848, fastest lap overall for this race. This will be a fantastic comeback drive from what was a fight for the lead of Matt High, giving him damage, dropping him down the order. And now he's going to be taking that, potentially taking that P3 away from Matt Cleaver. What a turnaround that has been for him.
Now I've also got this near 5-car train led by Ash Hill. Nigel Stock trying to retake P5 with Mike Reiner and Munro just about catching up to this, though does have Matt Cleaver in between the pair of them. We also have this 3-car train still. Staples now getting in front of Fortoy. Ben Brown is going to try and follow through, looking to the inside of Jersey, commits to the move. Fortoy leaves the space there for him through a very brave move from Ben Brown. It's actually going to try and come back into Graham Hill Bend. Meanwhile, at the same time, Aidan Carter has got the move done on Matt Cleaver at the start of the lap, and that is a car spun off. That's Jessica Perry down in 23rd, and Luca Monroe is getting up into P7 on the inside of Mike Reiner at Jurds. All the moves happening here in the 31st minute. Time is running out, so these are the moves that count as drivers try and gain a few last points. But for Sean McGardle, it's going the wrong way. Spun on the exit of Jurds. Let's get a replay of what happened here.
Well, he's going to go up into Druids, turn 2, onto the brakes. Is it too much speed? Yeah. too much speed in, and rear goes, no, what are you doing? I don't like that. Gets onto the grass. I think just about avoids the barrier. He does. So no damage other than to his pride, and the car remains unscathed, and he will be able to continue without needing to go to the pits. So that is good for him. However, the battle for this P5 position is still ongoing, and that's a shell round.
Contact with Philip Staples as they went side by side through Graham Hill Bend. Difficult to see from that angle who left how much space. So hard to tell if that was just hard racing or whether maybe someone got a little bit naughty. We'll get a bit of an idea here on board with Ashhill. Philip Staples still on the inside there. It's tight from Ashhill as I think there's trying to see which of the oNiD cars slotted through that gap, very much threading the needle.
Was indeed.
But yeah, Monroe now right on the back of Nigel Stock is going to try and get themselves up to P5s as we are very much nearing the end of the race, just over a couple of minutes to go.
Up the inside goes Monroe, very late move, gets the move done alongside Nigel Stock for position. That was a very optimistic move there, but it actually makes it work. The space opened for him. He managed to get the car up the inside. So no complaints there. It will remain somewhat side by side, but I think the move was very much already done even before the braking zone. That puts the car behind him. That's a oNiD delivered car, not for position, I don't believe. That's a lapped car either being lapped or trying to unlap themselves. I think that's actually Aidan Carter potentially, I'm not entirely sure. Nearest car to these guys is Mike Rayner. It's the red and blue car behind the oNiD delivered car. And he's going to be either trying to make a move back past again, unlap or lap that oNiD car and try and fight back for that 6th position. But I think that oNiD delivery car is keeping him split for now. It's car 77, who
that is Dan Tomlinson.
Dan Tomlinson, yeah, yes indeed. So Dan Tomlinson, this will actually be him trying to unlap himself from the cars ahead. If you have the pace, you can do it, but I wouldn't want to disturb a top 10 battle. I would potentially just maybe stay put and hunker down for the next race.
Yeah, we are nearing the final lap of the race. Not long to go, and in fact Matt High has just started the final lap. This is the penultimate lap for the drivers that we're watching as they come through Clark Curve. Opportunities are fading him. Matt Cleaver starting the final lap by putting it into the wall at Paddock Hill. Luckily the car with all 4 wheels still connected, just very wide, and then into collecting the wall. That will certainly have knocked some of the wheels out of alignment, which won't make it an easy car to get to the line. Luckily they have quite a gap back to 5th place, but it'll be the other Matt High that will take the 3rd race win of the oNiD4 series.
No, one
here
more lap.
At
He's come to the line just before 35 minutes. He's got to do one more lap. Are they fueled? Have they got enough fuel?
Yeah, they'll have enough fuel. It's fixed setup.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's fine. They'll have enough fuel. One more lap then.
Yeah,
not quite the end of the race.
Yeah, I'll tell you what threw me off is the fact that the lap times take a few seconds to pop up. So when the lap time popped up, it's like, oh, this is final lap. But I crossed the line a few seconds earlier, so it's like, oh no, actually just enough time for one more lap, which will not be helping Matt Cleaver as Monroe try and chases them down while being under pressure. A lot of weaving for Matt High though as they come up to line, and they do win the 3rd race of our oNiD4 series here at Brands Hatch Indy. Jack Dan will take 2nd place. Aidan Carter recovering to the podium in 3rd. Matt Cleaver will hold on to P4 as they come across the line, and Luca Monroe fends off Nigel Stock for the final top 5 position, with Mike Mariner following just in behind in P7.
Oh. You get to do that all over again, albeit for a bit of a shorter race, but...
A shorter race, but starting on pole position will be Ben Brown in 5th from 15th place here. He'll be the front row alongside Mac Barnes. So... yeah, maybe a shorter race, but if anything, it's going to have even more chaos than what we just witnessed.
Absolutely. Sadly, the session already transferred over to the next race and already going to start gridding up, so I can't give you the results for that race one. Just to run through what the actual full standings were. But we are now onto the warm-up session for the next race. And guys will have 5 minutes just to reacquaint themselves a little bit to the circuit. And we'll just have a couple of more test runs around the circuit just to be sure they know what they're doing. But nothing should really change. The weather is still the same. Lovely toasty 21 degrees over track temperature of 38. And we should see some really good racing again. But yeah, I'm so surprised for race 1 you survived lap 1 chaos. Nothing on lap 1.
Yeah, well, have a few people in chat. Dave Wade saying he hasn't heard Aiden panic that much since you blew your engine. I got a little bit confused whether he's talking about Carter or you beside me. But blowing your engine? Yeah, that's definitely you.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that. That's fine.
Paul Grady saying that Ben Brown has taken up the Stevie Bain school of reverse grid racing. Yeah, certainly has. Charlie Morgan saying, note to self, hold brake more at start. Yes, the start line on quite the not very flat at all.
Yeah.
So yes, slightly rolling and getting that penalty, and Dave Wood slightly rubbing it in, asking how Morgan's fancy new pedals are doing. Morgan saying, well, they got a jump start penalty. They think that answers that.
Yeah.
Ben Brown saying, don't worry, they'll be off the podium again by themselves. Hopefully not, Ben.
No.
Hopefully not. But with how difficult this car is, yeah, it really is proving to be a challenge for a lot of drivers. More so in this race than we've seen in the races at Donington. We've seen the spins in both qualifying sessions. Donington, though, drivers seem to be a little bit more tame in the races. But here, Brands Hatch, proving to be a bit more of a struggle, especially Paddock Hill for Ben Brown.
Yep, absolutely. So, see what happens. Ben, I'm sure you'll be up on that grid and top 10 at the very least, I'm sure. A couple of cars out on the circuit just warming up, and we've got about another couple of minutes before we do go to there's a car going on the sand. That was rather interesting. That was Krozek, I do believe. But we'll go gridding up in again another 2 minutes or so. But yeah, 25 minutes, a shorter race with a top 15 reverse. It's going to be interesting. Let's have to see how good these faster guys are. From the reverse grid, starting with 15th, the race winner, Matt High, will have a bit of a fun time on his hands, I think, along with everyone else who's got to potentially fight through the grid to maybe retain those top spots.
Yeah, well, let's just go through that race 1 finishing order as we've yet to do so. As mentioned, it was Matt High that took the win following drama for Jack Dan, who would finish up 2nd place. Aidan Carter finishing in 3rd, having their own drama as well. Matt Cleaver, drama at the end, fell to 4th position. Luca Monroe would hold off Nigel Stock for P5 and P6 at the end. Mac Reiner taking P7. Ash Hill would finish in 8th position, ahead of Rich. And Charlie Morgan taking last top 10 spot after their lap 1 drive-through. Sean McGardle would finish P11 after their couple of spins, ahead of Philip Staples. For Toy, we'd fall down to 13th, have Mac Barnes in 14th, and Ben Brown taking the last reverse grid position with P15. Ashford would just miss out, ahead of Dan Tomlinson. Ben Holmes would take 18th, ahead of Oliver Stone, having that drama fighting for the lead. We'd finish down in 19th position. Dempere would take P20, ahead of Patolfson in 21st. Grant Lloyd in 22nd. Jessica Perry 23rd. Alex Turner 24th. Jared Page 25th. Krosek, after having such a good race to get up to P8 or P7, having started from the back of the field, unfortunately fell into some issues from commentators' curse. We'll file that one under.
Yeah.
They finished 26th, ahead of Sophie Aronwin, who finished down. Who did not finish that race. So from 16th to 27th, they will be starting in those same positions. Though The top 15 will be reversed. That, as said, means that Ben Brown will take pole position ahead of Mac Barney's alongside on the front row. For Toyn Staples will roll off the second row, ahead of Sean McGardle and Charlie Morgan on the third row. Rich and Ash Hill will make the fourth row ahead of Mike Rayner and Nigel Stock. Luca Munro will be P11, have Matt Cleaver in 12th. Carter in 13th, Jack Dan 14th, and race winner Matt High will be down in 15th. And we actually have on screen the grid. And then from there, the finishing results will go through again. Ashford in 16th, Dan Tomlinson 17th, Ben Holmes 18th, Oliver Stone 19th, Tempera 20th, Buddleson 21st, Grant Lloyd 22nd, Jessica Perry 23rd, Alex Turner 24th, ahead of Jar Page 25th, Krosek 26th, and Sophie Aaron Wynn down in 27th. So we're gridding up for our sprint race here. Remember, slightly shorter at 25 minutes, but still plenty of laps for the drivers to fight their way back up the grid, whether you've been reversed down from a higher finishing position or whether you fell foul to a spin or some instance in the first race. It is time for redemption. The lights go out and we're away here for the second race at Brands Hatch Indy. Down to turn one. Ben Brown will hold on to lead, but wasn't a great start for one of the oNiD cars in the background, already pulling a gap to Mac Barnes as they all fight for position into Druids. Now, it looks like it's been clean so far, but they're still tussling for position side by side, nearly 3 wide in the background. They're starting to string out as they head to Graham Hill's Bend now. Lot of switching for position. Aidan Carter already got themselves into the top 10 at the expense of Mike Rayner, who's already been passed by Jack Dan as well. Oliver Stone up to 15th from 19th place at the moment, and looks like Dan Tomlinson is taking a trip through pit lane, unfortunately, as well as Grant Lloyd. Not a good way for them to start the race. Jar Page has dropped to the back of the grid of those that haven't needed to run make a trip through pit lane. And Krosek is up to 21st from 26th. They'll be looking to get back towards top 5 like they were in the previous race before they found the off tracks. Look back at the start. It's a poor start there from third on the grid for Toy. Drop back, tries to fight back through T1, but you can see everyone jostling for position as they come into Druids. And just 2 by 2 through here, everyone leaving each other enough space, no contact, which is great to see. And yeah, again, 2 for 2 races so far, everyone making it through the first lap cleanly.
Pretty much so. We have had some issues. There's cars off circuit. As Jack Perry's gone off circuit. I believe there's also an incident as well. Oh, guys, it's a couple of cars off. There's 3 cars off at turn 1.
3 cars off, and what looks like 3 separate incidents. Jessica Perry finding the blue number 8 car in the gravel, and for Toy is now off into the gravel as well from third position, trying to get back to pit lane, but the stream of cars preventing them, and they have to tow themselves back to pit lane, and that's going to bring some of a bit of an early end to the race, I would imagine, as they'll drop multiple laps down. But look at the timing tower, where the timing tower, everyone filled with orange marks, and Philip Staples running into the gravel as well, wanting to rejoin, but everyone's still concertinaed up, has to win. There's another car spinning in the background as well. So we got through that one safely, but it's been casualties through lap 2 and 3. Alex Turner losing their rear end, just getting a little tap of assistance from the car behind. Not much that they could do to avoid that, unfortunately for them. Mac Barnes was one of the cars into the gravel at T1. This, I think, was from the second lap. They kept it going in straight line, but it might have been a little bit later. Sorry, it was Adrian Rich who dramatically losing the rear end into T1, spinning round to the gravel. Luckily avoided the wall, and there was definitely contact there, and then we can see Jessica joining them into the gravel and adding some damage. and insult to injury. Let's try and see. Mike Rayner was the car that spun, caught by race winner Matt Hyder into the back of them, taking their rear wing off. And that's drama for race 1 winner. They're going to have damage, and that's going to make it a struggle for the rest of this race. Into Jerds here. Matt High struggling to make Jerds. They towed back to pit lane. Our race 1 winner effectively out of this race.
Well, that all happened in a very quick order, didn't it? Dear Lord. Yeah, that was... Well, we said no in lap 1 chaos, but then we got on lap 2 chaos. Baton has had a crash. He's had returned back to the pit lane, and that's him scraping along the wall of the final team. He joins the circuit. He's crawling, desperately trying to get across. I think the thing's better of it, and then jumps back to the pits. Yeah,
this was one of those many moments that we saw in that collection of replays. Dan Tomlin's here having a wide moment. Now keeps it on the track. The car bottoming out over the curb a little bit, but loses rear end 3 Jerds and is facing the wrong way. Just about gets going before I think Rich that was caught up to them. Meanwhile, up at the front, Aidan Carter trying to have a bit of a race now with Sean McGardle trying to take the podium position. It's been a quick drive up towards the front for Carter and Jack Dan, who's not far behind in P5. And yeah, Ian Carter getting the move done on Sean McGardle in P3. Next up for them is Barnes in P2.
You're glad to know that's all the replays of instance caught up on. We have now just to focus on a little bit of the racing now, as we had a bit of a hectic lap 2 and 3. Everyone cleanly through lap 1, which is always nice to see. And maybe under instructions from race director potentially saying, come on now, be careful on lap 1. After that, once you get into a rhythm, go for it. But let's not have any lap 1 madness. And I'm very happy to say that everyone here has indeed obliged that request.
And then said, right, that one's done. Time for the chaos.
Pretty much. No,
We've got Aidan Carter going for P2 already on Barnes. Did not take long for them to catch up. They'll have another moment after they make the move, but it's cleanly done, and it's now oNiD car 1-2. Ben Brown leading the way, inverse of what it was on Monday, as it was Aidan Carter that led the way. Ben Brown in third, and someone we really don't need to talk about that was in second place for that race. Yeah. But Matt Cleaver sets fastest lap of the race, really in that pack of cars from sort of Barnes down to Ben Holmes are all pretty much line astern. Then a little further back, Ashford trying to get round the outside of Botolfson. Paddock Hill Ben will have to carry it on through Jerds. It's a very long way round, but if you can carry enough momentum, you can, and they do hold it to the outside. It's the inside then for Graham Hill Ben. They left the room, and on the outside, Botolfson maybe just not having enough confidence there, but still side by side into Serdes. Coming up to Clark curve, but it's loss of the rear end for Ashford, and it will be a little slip and slide onto the grass.
Indeed, it will be a contact narrated between Ben Holmes and Nigel Stock. They both are continuing, however. Zach Morgan having a spin, it is.
Spin out of Jerds. Might have been assisted, might have been a little too eager on the throttle. As Oliver Stone trying to make up positions. It didn't quite work out for them there. I think that's Jessica Perry on the inside, maybe with a bit of damage here. And tapped by Oliver Stone, who takes off the rear wing. And look at the damage. Major crabbing for Oliver Stone, our front row starter for the first race. Yeah, look at that crabbing. That is, the car's traveling at nearly 10 degrees compared to the direction it's going. And yeah, both those cars will have to take to the pits. They'll use that fast repair to not lose too much time, but it is going to be another recovery drive for Oliver Stone. They've already tried to make one this race, hasn't quite gone to plan. They'll have to make a second. That
car is crabbing so much, may as well call it Dr. Zoidberg. That's a very nerdy reference, I apologise. Anyway, you'll get it if you'll get it. It's fine. I may have to explain it to Scotty later on, but we'll gloss over that one. P5 battle happening. Ricardo Munro fighting away for position, and Mac Barnes as well, leading that P5 position. They go through turn 2 just about enough space left for him, and they figure it out as they go onto the exit. However, up the inside, looks like it's going to be, oh, that's a Twitch, Ricardo. Cleaver and Monroe going to go at it in the background. And they're going to, oh, sorry, I stand corrected. It's Ricardo McBarnes, should I say, having the moment in the blue car. McBarnes having the blue moment. And the Monroe and Cleaver now fighting away. Cleaver looking up the inside, thinking, can I please make a move? That's not good. Monroe. I'm getting confused with my cars. What am I doing? Monroe and Ricardo and Barnes. There we go. As that looks like... Oh God, please find space for one another through here. For the love of God.
A bit more space there than there was last lap. But Barnes is going to try and hold on here.
Oh, they're 3 wide.
Trading. They're gonna try 3 wide towards Surdays. Scrub is predicting death within chat, and it is often to the grass for Barnes. They just about gather the car back up before making contact. They'll lose places down to 8th place. Tampere getting in front of them as well. But there are more cars queuing up behind them. Nigel Stock and Ben Holmes will be the next 2 to try and pass the dark blue car. But at least they're still pointing the right way without any damage. Here's a replay, maybe a little bit side-by-side contact, slides off into the grass, well held, well recovered, keeping that car pointing in a straight line. But yeah, unfortunately, they still lost those places. But these cars still nose to tail as they come out of Clark Curve. Start another lap. Nigel Stock has made the move on Barnes behind for P8, as in front Jack Dan in sub 44 fastest lap as they try and chase down not only Aiden Carter but Ben Brown. Big contact between Cleaver and Tampere 3T1.
Oh boy, that is going to be interesting. Cleaver's going back to the pits. We are going to get a replay of that. Let's have a look at how that all unfolded. Oh, nowhere for him to go.
Again, we've seen this in the first race. The car in front, Cleaver this time losing the rear end, and the car behind just having Tampere having nowhere to go, not able to do anything to avoid it, and calamity as body parts fall off of both cars. But now, fight for the lead. Well, it's not a simple one. They've got a lap car between them.
Yes, they have indeed. I'm going to have to figure that one out in a little while. I'm sure they'll move out of the way to try and figure out who that is. I think that's car 79, Mike Rayner. Yeah, it is indeed. Gets suitably out of the way for Aiden Carter and Jack Dan as well. So the second, third and fourth cars not being too compromised. There's a car from the background. That was
Charlie
Morgan having an instant, I think, for Terry's off as well at somewhere too. And involved in that.
Has nicked Morgan's rear wing and will be taking another trip through pit lane. This one certainly won't be as quick as last time, but the fight for the lead really is hotting up now. Ben Brown leading Aiden Carter, oNiD teammates. I wonder if any oNiD team orders will come into play, as Ben Brown could definitely help Aiden Carter here, let them through, then try and hold up Jack Dan, who seems to be the quickest of these 3 drivers. But doesn't seem like Ben Brown is going to make this too easy in the slipstream for Carter. Which way are they going to go? They have to go to the outside as Brown covers off the inside, not committing to a move to the outside, trying to get a cutback, and is able to slot the gap. We'll have the inside here for Druids. How confident will they be on the brakes? Ben Brown, how much do they fight this on the outside? It doesn't look like they fight it too much. And Jack Dan is going to try and follow through. Contact as they head down to Graham Hill Bend, and Jack Dan is going to try to cut back themselves. Ben Brown squeezes Dan over towards the lapped car that is going slowly and will just about hold on. Dan looking to the inside, tipping their front wing into that gap, really putting it at risk. Ben Brown just leaves enough room to avoid contact, but Jack Dan not far enough alongside to make the move work. Aidan Carter now has the opportunity to try and pull away, break out a gap that Jack Dan will have to close down if they want to win this race. Right up to the gravel, Jack Dan wanting to go to the inside, Ben Brown covering it off with the inside. Dan still trying to look for a way through, but it has not worked out this time. Through Graham Hill Bend once more, using all of that runoff that they are allowed to. Aidan Carter stretching the gap by a few attempts, few car lengths, committing to the outside is Jack Dan. They're going to try and carry the momentum, squeeze Brown to the inside, and it might work here. They still have to go the longer distance, and they'll need the momentum if they want to make this move work. Side by side towards Paddock Hill, and it's still on the outside for Jack Dan. Can they do it again? Round the outside. Brown leaves them the space, but it still has their nose in front. Braking now for Druids. Is it going to be a third corner row that Jack Dan holds it round the outside? It is indeed. And finally, it turns to the inside here at Graham Hill Bend. Little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact, and Ben Brown is off into the grass.
I was about to say that was bloody brilliant for the most part, but oh, that's gonna not go. I don't think Ben's gonna be too happy with that little bit of a wheel nudge, should I say, a bit of wheel-to-wheel contact. Is that gonna force him to pit up ahead of him as the car spinning? It avoids that very well. That was Page, I do think, having a bit of an adventure on the final turn. Oh, it was Boston, I do believe, actually. Yes, I'm corrected. Let's just see how that all unfolds. Let's see if we can jump on board with Jack Dan, if I get the right camera shot. Indeed we will. On the outside is contact at 4 spin off. Oh, it might have been a nudge. Might have been a nudge.
It looked very marginal from that camera angle. Maybe a little bit of iRacing netcode at play. It is hard to say. We'll get another angle from Ben Brown's on board. As here from the exit. Brown right up to the outside. We'll go slow-mo on the white line, and yeah, there definitely is contact there. Maybe damages Ben Brown's front left wheel. Maybe he sort of pushes it inwards, which is why Ben Brown wasn't able to sort of steer in as much. And maybe that car is crabbing for Ben Brown. Meanwhile, Sean McGardle and Nigel Stock are fighting over P5. And Stock is going to get the better of... Sean McGardle's going to get the better of Nigel Stock for the moment. And is going to hold P5, leading the way in the AM class this race so far.
Oh, now things start to calm down a little bit. 10 or so minutes left to go. We've got PAC off, potentially Lloyd. Oh, that is Lloyd off, and that's involved in another car. That's also Alex Turner. Will jump on board to see what's happened here. I think 18th was fighting up ahead. And was this... oh no, this is Turner going sideways. And was there a rejoin? It holds the brakes. Is there going to be contact? There's a shunt. And it was potentially contact with Jarrett Page. Oh, that's not good at all. That's not going to go down well.
Page, I think, realised they weren't going to be able to pull the car to the inside of Lloyd, and so went to the outside, but unfortunately wasn't quite able to avoid them and contact. Also, a car clipped Lloyd's front, or Turner's front wing here, sorry. So Alex Turner in just wide off the racing line, loses the rear end, and so did, is that Grant? I think that might have been Grant Lloyd. That also lost the rear end. So just unfortunate circumstance, both cars losing the rear end at the same place, ending up at the same point of the gravel, and thus coming together. Yeah, Grant Lloyd loses the rear end as well. Nothing they can do really at that point, and they go and have an interesting little tangle with the rear wing.
That is gutting. Spins in sympathy. It says if you can do it, I can do it better.
7 minutes left to go in the race. Still plenty of positions to be sorted out, including the lead. Carter leads only by about 6/10 as they get to the inside and avoiding. There is Jack Dan as they're chasing down Carter for the lead, trying to remember who's running the Union Jack livery.
There's Ashford.
Yeah, Ashford just getting caught up in that little bit of a battle for the lead. But as Carter and Dan come up to the line, their last lap times, Jack Dan nearly 4/10 quicker than Carter, laying down their intention to take the lead of this race and what would be their second win of the series in 4 races, all over the back of Aidan Carter. 6 minutes remaining. Can Jack Dan find a way past, or will Aidan Carter hold on for their first win of the series? Trying to find a move, was thinking of the inside, but Carter had it covered off. Had to look to the outside, get a bit of air on the front wing again to get the car turned into Clark Curve, and we'll use the slipstream now down the Brabham straight towards Paddock Hill. Carter staying defensive, covering off that inside line. Can they carry enough momentum through T1? They do indeed, and again immediately covering the inside to Druids. This is just going to be a defensive drive from here to the checkered flag for Carter. Can Jack Dan though find any way through? We know they will look any which way to get past, as they did on Ben Brown. It was the outside round 3 corners they held it on the outside of Ben Brown to finally have the shot of an inside. Aidan Carter wide with the lockup, as you say, potentially opening the door for Jack Dan, but not able to carry enough momentum to get alongside. Dan Tomlinson has had issues further back and is in pit lane, dropping down the order, and here it is to the outside for Jack Dan, balancing the car with the rear end, wanting to slip round off the racing line, but will be the outside again for George. That rear end really looking sliding. Jack Dan pushing to the absolute limit to try and get this move done. It hasn't worked out quite yet. 4.5 minutes remain. They'll need to try again, and Aidan Carter certainly not making it easy. Ben Brown with that damage following that contact that Jack Dan passed them with is now having to fend off Luca Munro. Barnes loses a place to Oliver Stone in P12. That 4-car train being led by Tempera in P10 at the moment, having a good battle. It's battles up and down the grid as we're in the final 5 minutes of the race. Who will come on top? Will we have any last minute drama? You'll have to stay tuned to find out.
My timing tower up is lighting up on Christmas tree. It's action up and down the grid. Brilliant, loving it. We've got to keep an eye on this battle. Hill all the way up the inside, could potentially now has to move because of Tempera running wide. I think they're going to side by side across the start finish line in the background, however. Stone also wants to make a move as well. Lead change. Jack Dan. Up to West Carter. Where's Aidan Carter?
Aidan Carter has found themselves off track. Will go on board as they come up to Sardes. Swing it into left-hander using a bit of the curb, using a lot of the curb on the right-hand side, and just unable to slow the car down, locking up the right front, and then gets going again. Maybe just a little too late on the brakes, got off the racing line and struggling for grip to slow the car down. A disappointing way for them to lose the lead, but I wonder, was there contact? Jack Dan has slowed down to give the place up. I wonder if there was contact, actually, which would make sense, as Oliver Stone now has had to go to pit lane. Drama at the end of this race as the fight for the lead is back on. We'll go jump on board with Jack Dan as they come up. A lot of curb there. Wants to try move to the inside, but the gap hadn't quite opened up in time. Jack Dan pushing in Carter off and then respectfully giving the place up when it was safe to do so. These two will go at it once again, this time with a bit of damage. Both of them will have damage from that contact. Right rear damage for Aidan Carter, front wing damage for Jack Dan. Of course, might still have a little bit of damage themselves from that contact with Ben Brown. Tempera holding on in front of Barnes for P11 after Ash Hill has gone front to take the final top 10 position. Also, quick mention, Sophie Arnwin up to P8, doing very well this race. A driver that has struggled. It will not be a podium for Ben Brown this race. Luca Monroe has found a way past and is on for, I believe, their second podium of the series, sending it down the inside, doing what Jack Dan was unable to do. Ben Brown maybe not expecting the move, turning in their contact between the two of them, but ultimately Luca Monroe got themselves well far enough along the inside with a great outbraking maneuver to take the final podium position. You can't be mad at that one. That was just well done.
You can't be mad at all. Just to rewind a little bit onto that car to Dan, fair play to Dan. Always in a good position, but we do encourage our drivers who've been involved in this just to keep on racing and settle it
hang
after
on.
the race.
We can talk about that later. Nigel Stock has had an issue and lost out P8 to P7 out to Sophie, sorry. But the fight for the lead is still on. 2 laps to go here as they go through Paddock Hill. Aidan Carter still defending as if it's the racing line. 3 Jurds. Can Jack Dan find the opportunity? Can they find the gap that is actually there? Here is replay of Nigel Stock coming through Paddock Hill into Jurds, braking, turning in, and there goes the rear end, and there goes, I think that was Sophie, we just seen passing in at the end of the replay as well, P7, which would be a fantastic result for Sophie. White flag out as signalling the final lap. Aidan Carter actually taking to the racing line this time into Paddock Hill. Might not have been a good idea. They run out wide and it's to the inside for Jack Dan. Has Carter lost this race on the final lap? They'll get it slowed down, will Jack Dan on the inside? And they have taken the lead. Can Aidan Carter find any way to come back? Literally 2 corners to go as Oliver Stone and Dempara fight over P12. Jack Dan with the inside. Carter trying to get alongside, isn't far enough, and trying to get a better exit out of the final corner. It is all they can do, but it is now a drag race up to the line. The checkered flag will be out, and with a mistake on the final lap from Aidan Carter, Jack Dan takes their second win of the oNiD4 series. Carter have to settle for second place after that mistake, and Luca Monroe will take their second podium here, finishing in P3, just a 10th ahead of Ben Brown. What an end to this race. That was manic. So much happening in those final 6 minutes. We could barely keep up with it.
Oh my word. That was mental. Absolutely crazy. Fantastic racing by all. And even with a little tap from Jack Dan Carter, fair play to him, giving that lead back, I must admit. I think that's fair play. We were treated to a battle right until the end of the race. And what a battle it was.
Yeah, what a battle. And as you were sort of starting to mention, amongst that chaos, as if we have time to talk about other things, there is a rule in oNiD that we do encourage drivers to not give places up because it can cause other incidents when you're slowing down. But you can see Jack Dan sort of waited, didn't hand it back immediately, waited, like, right, when is it going to be safe to do so? Out of Jurds realised, right, I do have the gap, there is a space, now is the time to let them through and slow up. And they didn't just stamp on the brakes and really come to a crawl. I assume they actually probably started slowing up out of Paddock Hill through Jurds, and gradually give up the time to let Aidan Carter close up and take the place. That is a safe way to do it. Great respect. Good sportsmanship between the two of them. When you're fighting hard, sometimes you do make the slightest misjudgment. It is part of racing. And yeah, sometimes you just go acknowledge, yep, you got it slightly wrong, which Jack Dan did. And yeah, brilliant to fight way through, getting through in the end. Aidan Carter, it was their race to lose, and they lost it, running wide at the end.
Indeed they did. Let's just have a natter about that race as we just watch the replay from the start of the race. Maybe a bit slow-mo, why not, as the race start unfolds. But what a wonderful races we've had this evening.
Yeah, that slow-mo really points out sort of the elevation and the camber that the track has as all the cars spin the rear wheels up to some extent. The rear just sort of sliding down the track towards the pit wall per start for Staples, or even per start for one of the oNiD cars in the background as well, sort of bogged down off the line as everyone then fighting for position towards Druids. Boy, boy, that was yeah, that was some race. I would try and sum it all up, but it is. It feels impossible to sum up with just how much there was that race.
Yeah, that was absolutely incredible. I said to myself at the start of this stream, look, it's going to be hectic. It's a short track, loads of cars, but they actually made it work. I'm really, really pleased that it had done. It had a really, really good start of the race. It was all clean lap one. We had a few incidents here and there. I absolutely get it, but nothing horrible, nothing kind of untoward. It's been hard, fair racing, but for a short track and this amount of cars, it's been wonderful. It's been a brilliant evening.
Yeah, it wasn't like anyone did anything really silly. It was hard racing where, it was fine misjudgments, small little bits, where we're talking like a centimeter was the difference between it being fine and having contact. So yeah, it was great racing to watch. And yeah, how about we go through the final order? Because yeah, it's so hectic. Yeah, we barely checked in with half of the field, even if they were having great fights. As we have Dan Tomlinson in chat saying they definitely didn't do anything silly. Definitely didn't enter the pits backwards. And Mad High saying they definitely didn't see that. So good to see. Vouch Gamer Girl. Will be Sophie. I am going to take a guess. If not, apologies. But saying well done to Jack for the great racing. And Charlie Morgan saying they did a lap with no wing while someone was shouting in their ear that it's fallen off, but they didn't know. So yeah, that finishing order then. Jack Dan taking the win on the final lap after Aidan Carter ran wide into Paddock Hill Bend. Luca Munro will take final podium position from Ben Brown, who struggled with damage after that incident with Jack Dan. Sean McArdle, the top AM driver, we get P5. Great result for them, head of Ben Holmes. Sophie Aronwin taking P7. They've struggled so far this season, so I imagine they will be absolutely delighted with that result. So very well done to them. Finishing ahead of Nigel Stock after that mistake, spinning at Jards towards the end of the race. Krosek will sort of make a recovery drive this race to finish 9th after starting 26th. That's 17 places gained, not falling curse of the commentator this time round. Ash Hill will round out the top 10. Mac Barnes in P11 fended off Oliver Stone in who would have sell for P12 after a bit of a disappointing day, you'd have to say, for the championship leader coming into this round. Ashford would finish 13th, have Mike Reiner in 14th and Tim Parra in 15th. Bottleson would be 16th, ahead of a disappointment for race one winner of tonight, Matt High, down in 17th, ahead of fellow Matt Cleaver. Again, gonna be disappointed. It was a Matt 1-2 for part of this race, and they finished 17th and 18th by the end. Charlie Morgan, difficult time losing their wing. We'd finish 19th, have Jessica Perry in 20th. Dan Tomlinson in 21st, have Grant Lloyd with that spin at T1 in 22nd. Jar Page 23rd, Alex Turner also spinning at the same time as Grant Lloyd, would be 24th. For Toy, really struggling from the second lap onwards this race, down in 25th, with Philip Staples 26th and Adrian Rich rounding off our 27 car field. What manic that was. I'm interested to see what the standings are for that race. But yeah, that was wow. It was so much.
It was, and as we said, this iRacing season is really proving to excite. It's a very fiercely competitive field, and this feels like everyone's wanting to race and giving each other space, and it's lovely to see. But it gives us some great racing extra as well. Next week, however, we are back live. I sadly won't be there. I shall be away, but our wonderful driver, who was a pole sitter for race 2, Ben Brown, will be bringing you the stream along with Scotty, and you'll hear a different voice other than mine for a week whilst I'm away, being a bit of a nerd and being at Expo. Until then, I will be back in 2 weeks' time. Scotty, I presume you'll be back for next week's round at Snetterton 200?
Yes, we'll be Snarden 200. Somewhat of a simple track, much more straightforward, missing out the infield. The potential for slipstreaming. Hopefully, it gives us some more great racing and a little bit longer. So, hopefully, not as much chaos. Qualifying will certainly be a little bit easier for the drivers, and hopefully, it will be just as much fun as tonight was. Kruzek in the chat saying that was pretty fun, which is great to hear. So, yes, looking forward to round 3. Shame you'll have to miss Aiden, but hopefully you enjoy your time at your expo. And yes, of course, don't forget, we have more racing action throughout the week. On Sunday, we have round 2 of our 100 series on Le Mans Ultimate. 100 minutes or an hour and 40 minutes. Strategy will be at play for round 2 at Bahrain Endurance Circuit. We already seen various strategy options, whether drivers change to front tyres, to left-hand side tyres, or even all 4 tyres in the pit stops. Sort of changed things up, made for some interesting racing, and we'll hopefully see some more this Sunday. On Monday, then, we go into our 3rd week of Season 3, starting with the GT3 Festival. That will be at Monza Curva Grande for the 3rd round. With a load of GT3 cars on Le Mans Ultimate for a 65-minute race. We had mixed weather this week at Fuji. That provided some interesting excitement. Hopefully, we will see some more, and will probably be a drier weekend at Monza without the first chicane. Tuesday, we have the continuation of the John Cooper Works Mini World Tour. That week will be at Sportsland Sugo. Some very chaotic racing, somewhat similar to tonight. So hopefully we'll see some more of that after some great racing at Sydney Motorsports Park and Falkenberg the first 2 weeks. 3 races include another reverse grid in that series. So if you like the reverse grid from today, make sure you tune in on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, we also have our Simhound Academy on the Mon Ultimate. LMP2 cars and GT3 cars can watch some drivers who are maybe a little newer to sim racing, learn the ropes, get up to speed, and have some fun while doing so. That's what we have coming up over next week for me and Ben Brown joining you next week. But until then, everyone take care. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone. Have a good rest of your week. We'll see you very soon.